Hello everyone and welcome to the Commexis Cast Daily for Monday, October 23rd, 2017. All the news you need to know from our inbox to yours. I'm Matthew McGrorty, the videographer and podcaster here at Commexis, and today I am joined by lead strategist at Commexis, Phillip Brooks.
Good morning.
And the president of Commexis, Len Ward.
Good morning.
So our first story today comes from DigiDay, and it is about Snap turning to programmatic advertising for their Snapchat shows. So originally, people were able to buy programmatic ads for the user stories, the curated stories, and the Discover tab, but for Snapchat shows, that was more mediated one-on-one by Snapchat, and it turned out to be not as successful as they would have liked. They were having some difficulty filling in the ad platform, so they decided to open it up. So for example, advertisers can already buy Snap ads programmatically through the ad manager, which they launched earlier this year, as I mentioned, but during the first round of a lot of these new Snapchat shows, the first season more or less, they were hesitant to run ads that were bought in this auction that they have on their ad manager, which, quote, depressed revenue dramatically, said one source, which has led Snap to promise opening programmatic doors even more. So some of the shows that you can find on Snapchat's shows are CNN's The Update, NBA's Versus, E! News's The Rundown, and a lot of these shows are going to be having a second season, so this is pretty significant.
Yeah, I mean, and so just to kind of give kind of a background on programmatic, it's been sort of the backbone or the bellwether for this latest, where people are complaining about transparency in the ad industry, that kind of thing, because a lot of companies are utilizing these programmatic tools to automate the bidding process for ads. So basically, it's a bidding auction for prices, not unlike what happens kind of behind the scenes with Google AdWords, where you're bidding on a particular price, and you can set a price, and you're basically bidding for airtime utilizing these tools. And when you're utilizing some of these third-party applications, there's really not a whole lot of transparency with regard to how much you're spending, what cut that the company's taking on that, that kind of stuff. And that's really sort of the root of a lot of the complaints that we're seeing with transparency in advertising in general. However, with Snap, they do offer an internal tool that you can utilize on the Discover platform to buy ads directly through them, so it sort of eliminates some of that concern. However, I think the more interesting thing to look at here is simply that they attempted to kind of go away from the programmatic model for this first season for these shows, and it was by all accounts pretty much an abject failure in that there was very little revenue at all, which is leading a lot of companies to kind of not really look at this as a viable platform. So one of the things that they actually specified in the article as well is that unlike a lot of the other platforms like Facebook and things like that, there's not really any investment on the part of the platform to help develop some of these shows. Yeah. So they're giving seed money to a lot of these investors to basically create content for their platform, whereas Snap, which again we've seen their stock prices and things like that, we don't know what kind of war chest they have, but I don't think it's nearly as significant as some of these other platforms. And as a result of that, they're not giving any sort of kickback or boost to the production budgets for some of these programming. Yeah. So it's a double-edged sword it's basically hitting them twice. Not only are they paying the whole full price as a content producer to get this stuff out there, but they're also not getting any sort of break on the ads. So I can see how that would make people a little more hesitant to jump into the Snap platform as a content platform.
Yeah, an example of that, one of the shows, these were all anonymous comments made by some of these showrunners, but one of the shows had a total of 50 million views, exceeding 50 million, but they still had difficulty filling the ad inventory. So for this show and for a couple other shows, the media companies are going to start being the ones basically organizing the ads, and then Snap is going to fill in with programmatic. One of the things in the article mentioned that Snap was just inexperienced with this. I mean, they talked about how $500 million or $500,000, something like that, seems like a lot to Snap, but to Pepsi, that's not a lot. So maybe that was something that led to this inability or inexperience to sort of fill these spaces.
What were the shows again?
So there were a couple. So there was CNN's The Update, NBA's The Versus, E! News The Rundown. There were a couple more.
Okay, but we'll just stop right there. So you'll say the NBA Versus and the E! News. Okay, NBA definitely, E! News maybe, CNN. Why? What is the demographics on Snap? Why is any advertiser in their right mind saying, I want to get, I know that the average age here is 14 years old, but I want to put my ad dollars behind this CNN show. So I think that's the problem with Snap, is that it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Whether it gets acquired or not is not this debate. But I think the problem with advertisers that they have is that I think that the smart agencies know the demographics in Snap is what? I mean, 12 to 10. Yeah. I mean, so, and I know that there's young 20s that are still in it, but that's the problem. It's like, and you got to think about the shows in there. So your shows that you want to advertise on, or shows that clearly are something that this demographic is going to be looking at and watching. And I think that inherently is the problem with Snap. And you are right. Snap hasn't figured this out on how to monetize their ad dollars. It's clearly reflected in their stock price, but something's there. Something's there. There is an audience there. It is growing. As a matter of fact, Hannah, our intern over the summer, she did a report where it was the average age of 15 to 18, they prefer to use Snap over Instagram. It's just that Instagram is growing so fast. So I think that's the issue. And they're just, again, it's Snap looking for an answer, looking for a solution. And to me, it just, I don't even know why CNN, quite frankly, is going there right now.
I think that's really just throwing stuff to the wall, see if it sticks. They had ad budget probably left over, and like, hey, let's just see what happens on here. Because, again, one of the things that the article mentions too is that, some of these more, companies with large budgets can afford to just try stuff and see if it has any sort of resonance in that marketplace. But you're right. It doesn't seem, the tone just seems kind of. It's off.
It's definitely off, but I've read some articles where a lot of the news shows, they're not typical news that we would watch on television, and I've heard that they've done pretty all right.
Okay.
Like, I'm not saying they're doing amazing,
no, that's good.
but
all right, good.
I've heard that they've been moderately successful.
Okay,
so
that's good.
Yeah, the engagement. I would love to see the engagement metrics on that.
Yeah. All right. So our final story today, really quick before we wrap up, a little story on Google attribution.
Yeah. So earlier this year, Google looked at kind of their alternative to the first-click attribution model, which is something that we've all kind of made our bones on in SEO up until this point, and in marketing. So we're obviously very, very interested in the kind of what data they're getting back for this already. But again, just to kind of recap, the last-click attribution, while has some value, it does ignore some of the more important parts of getting people in the funnel, what they do once they're inside the funnel. So it does skew some of the results away from us being able to take that user journey and really map it out correctly and see where the turning point is that makes somebody decide to go from just browsing to actually converting. So it's a very incomplete model. Unfortunately, it's all we had to work with up until this point. So Google's version, to kind of do away with that is always fascinating to see different ways to do things. And I think that they're on the right track with this idea that we replace it. But I would love to see more about what we're getting. But just to give you some early results, the meal delivery service HelloFresh started, I guess, a few months ago with the early access, and they're claiming to have achieved a 10% increase in conversions since starting using this new model. So, Google's hoping that with attribution, just like AdWords, marketers can more comfortably drive traffic from last click to a better, more data-driven model. And I think that's better for everybody in the industry. It again speaks to the transparency that we're very, very feel strongly about, and it can do nothing but help people to have trust in the industry and in agencies as well.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode of the Commexis Cast Daily. Check us out Wednesday and every day after that this week for more of the latest trending news.
Go Eagles!
Have a great day.